Continuing my series on the now disgraced legendary director Shane Carruth, I'm going to talk about behind the scenes of his breakout Sundance science fiction mindbender, the time travel movie Primer. I'll start off with some backstory on Shane himself and where this originated from. There's not much about his early life other than he graduated with a degree in mathematics, and before making Primer or filmmaking in general, he worked as a software engineer developing flight simulator models. He was writing originally short stories and eventually was attempting to write novels. But in doing so, he realized that his style lended itself much more to like a screenplay or a film. And according to interviews, the genesis of the film wasn't actually anything to do with science fiction at all. But rather he was fascinated by the importance of trust in friendship and what could push or bend that trust to the breaking point. And Shane pushed those ideas to the max through his own interpretation of how time travel might work. And the film is notorious for its lack of hand-holding. The engineers talk just like engineers would. The plot is extremely complex, and yes, the time travel articulated in the movie is pretty elegant. And the way Shane described how he landed on his elegant solution for time travel has to do with like the movement of the solar system in general, in which he always found time travel in movies kind of logically inconsistent because like Back to the Future, you would just move back in time, but according to him, that didn't make much sense because, as you can see in the picture above, the movement of the celestial bodies are constantly in motion. So if you were to actually go back in time, according to him, you would land in mostly empty space. And the way he solves it is that you never actually leave the physical space at all. You can only travel back in time as far as the time machine itself is turned on. So for example, if you wanted to eat breakfast again the same day at 8 a.m., you would have to first turn on your time machine box at 8 a.m. You then would, live out your day till like 4 o'clock, enter the time machine box, wait in the box for 6 hours, and when you emerged, you would be at the start of the time machine box at 8 a.m., living that same life again. And in this way, kind of closes a loop after you get past 4 p.m. So this in the plot kind of cascades in infinite ways. It's extremely complicated and it's really fascinating, so you should check it out. But how does someone with no background in filmmaking whatsoever actually come to make this movie? Well, the movie was shot in 2001, which means that digital filmmaking was not readily available for Shane. And so he was forced to shoot the entire film on 16 millimeter, which was basically where the entire $7,000 budget went. And because of the costs associated with actually having to shoot on film, he had to be extremely precise with his shooting schedule. So before he could shoot, Shane taught himself photography under the assumption that cinematography or shooting the film would just be the same exact thing, lighting setups, etc., only it's at a fixed shutter speed. So for every scene in the film, he actually took a photograph beforehand with all of the blocking and the lighting set up. So that way, when they actually went to shoot in production, they would have something to exactly mirror. And because of this extremely meticulous approach, the movie has basically 2 minutes of extra footage. That's it. Basically, every shot you see in the 70-something minute runtime is the first shot and only shot they took because of the film restrictions. And so the film was shot in 2001 over a couple months, but took over 2 years to edit, which Shane himself had to obviously do manually with like scissors and film. And also because Shane scored the entire movie himself. And once the movie was completed, the obvious move for him at the time was Sundance. This was where you get discovered. So he submitted it and waited. He was very concerned that there was a kind of political who you know element to what gets into Sundance. So in a kind of wild act of desperation after submission, he just went to Park City, Utah and started asking around for anyone who knew a programmer or producer that would look at the film. And so despite submitting at the early deadline, he actually didn't know for a really long time if it got in. Eventually he did. But there was a problem. Because he shot on 16 millimeter, they actually couldn't project the movie on the theaters that they showed at the festival. So Shane was required to find someone, who they eventually did, to pay the $30,000 to blow up the 16 millimeter film into 35 millimeter film so that it could actually play at Sundance. And at the end of the day, you get one of the most unique singular visions ever put on screen. And one of the coolest kind of purely American stories of gumption in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s film community, which unfortunately for all of us was completely undone because Shane Carruth is, I think, a psychopath. But more on that later as I get further along in the series. Did you guys love Primer as much as I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.